Hey guys, Josh here, back with a brand new video. Today we're going to be reviewing the F1 2015 Canadian Grand Prix. This was the 7th round of the season then, and it was a familiar person on the top step of the podium, of course. It was Lewis Hamilton taking his 4th win of the season. He's back on track, of course, back to winning ways for the first time since Bahrain. Nico Rosberg this time out couldn't do anything about it. He had to settle for second. It was a typical Mercedes 1-2. Hamilton just goes out, Rosberg just follows him. They basically just go around in tandem for the full 70 laps. Rosberg gets a bit closer, pulls out of the dirty air, and they never really get where you think Rosberg can actually overtake him. It's a bit of a yo-yo effect where Hamilton is firmly in first place, having pretty much everything under control. They had to manage a bit of fuel and a bit of brakes, but nothing really as threatening as we saw last season for Mercedes. What a turnaround for them compared to last season's race here, and also of course the last time out in Monaco. Talking about turnarounds, it was a brilliant podium for Valtteri Bottas, a brilliant way for Williams to come back after an awful qualifying for Nasr, and after an awful Monaco Grand Prix, their worst result in a very long time for the Williams team, followed by one of their best results, their first podium this season. And you generally think that they could actually catch Ferrari. We're getting into the tracks where Williams are very strong, especially of course Austria, the track where they got pole position last season, so watch out for Williams over these next few races. Third for Bottas today, his first podium this season, and 6th place for Massa, which is a brilliant result after coming from the back of the field. Practically he'll be definitely very happy with that. Made the first stint work extremely well. You could tell that car had a lot of pace. You can't help feeling maybe if he'd have been a bit higher up, he could have even beat Valtteri Bottas. His race pace was on point, as was Bottas. This is, Williams are looking very strong, and, possibly we could see them, really taking the fight to Ferrari for second in the Constructors. Talking about someone who, if they'd have started higher up, might have been able to challenge for high positions, was definitely Sebastian Vettel. It looked like he was, one of the fastest guys out there. If you look at the race lap times as the race wore on, Vettel was just getting quicker and quicker. A bit of a strange strategy as well, ditching the super softs after just 10 laps, but I think that worked perfectly. 5th place was probably about the best he could have hoped for after starting 18th on the grid. Brilliant recovery from Sebastian, some really good aggressive driving that I really like to see from drivers from both Massa and from Vettel, giving us a lot of action, some really nice overtaking and brilliant battles. Certainly in the first part of this race, which was very entertaining. Great stuff from Sebastian and Felipe, two drivers that have come under scrutiny for not being able to overtake apparently in the past, but I think once again proving that they're both very accomplished racers, especially Sebastian Vettel, getting very aggressive with Fernando Alonso and Nico Hülkenberg. You could tell he wanted to make a really aggressive move on Fernando Alonso. He wasn't going to wait until the DRS zone, he wanted to do it into the hairpin. And, of course, one time it worked, and then, of course, the second time we had to overtake him, he outbroke himself, or he had nowhere to go, basically, at the final chicane. But nonetheless, very differing fortunes for the 4-time world champion compared to the 2-time world champion, Fernando Alonso, sadly retiring from this race. Was really quick early on. He had really good defending and overtaking abilities, but soon just fell back. He can't compete with a Honda engine or a Renault engine, around this track. His teammate Jason Button also joining him in the garage. Button, it was never going to be a good race for him, after where he was starting and having to take that drive-through penalty early on. Anyway, back to the front then. Pastor Maldonado got his first points of the season. Very happy to report that. Great to see Pastor getting in the points. I really want this to be a start of a really good run for Pastor, because, it's taken him till, the 7th round of the season to score points in a car that's, more than capable of scoring points earlier. But, it's just been basically bad luck. If you look at the errors that Maldonado's actually made in the race, it's been very minimal. I guess China, you could argue both ways, but I think overall that was probably Jensen Button's fault. But, like I said, you can argue both ways. Just a lot of other, brake-by-wire kind of problems, a lot of, engine-related problems, all seem to be on the side of Grosjean. All seem to be on the side of Maldonado. Grosjean getting a lot of the luck, and actually, it was his mistake that cost him 7th place in this race. Maldonado maybe would have got Grosjean, although Grosjean was ahead in the first couple of stints. Maldonado did get ahead in the second stint, of course, when Grosjean had contact with Will Stevens. Just a typical kind of rookie error. Of course, Grosjean's not a rookie, but it's one of those where you just, poor spatial awareness, just cutting across Will Stevens. Nothing the Briton could have done. Yet he still finished 17th, last of the runners, which isn't too much of a surprise. Roberto Merri sadly retired. He was actually having a really good race. He had a brilliant qualifying to out-qualify Stevens. He then fell behind Stevens, managed to get past Stevens. He managed to pull away, but then sadly had a retirement. Bit of a shame for Manor getting their, I believe, first retirement, certainly for Merri. I believe it might be for Stevens as well. Pretty impressive reliability record, and their pace this weekend I think was pretty good, especially over one lap. I'm actually really excited to see what they can do later on in the season. I'm going to be, maybe I'll do a video talking about that, because I am particularly excited. Another team, of course, that's going to be getting a better car in the second half of the season is Force India, and it was a brilliant result for them today. Nick Hülkenberg in 8th and Sergio Perez in P11. Very lonely race for Perez, didn't really have too much battling to be going on with, which was a bit of a shame. He was running basically right with Grosjean for a lot of the race, but soon fell behind the likes of Fiat, although then he did, he was right behind Fiat, then kind of fell back for him, so maybe the strategy just really didn't work out for Perez this time, but it certainly did for Hülkenberg. 8th place, very solid result for him, 4 points, much needed after Perez has, kind of outshined him over the last 2 rounds, and of course, Hülkenberg having that spin when, Vettel was overtaking him, to come back and still get 8th was pretty good. If he had not had that spin, I don't think he'd have got Maldonado. I don't think that Force India was quite up to the pace. Talking a car that should have probably been very far off the pace was a Red Bull. Danny Fiat doing a fantastic job to get 9th place in a Renault-powered car around Canada. That is not a bad effort, and it's not to be, underrated. A brilliant job from the young Russian. Got his mojo back, definitely. Really just clicked, I think, after Monaco, and has been brilliant in these last 2 races. And beating Ricciardo, who finished down in P13. I do believe he had a bit of a problem. Carlos Sainz as well in 12th. Romain Grosjean 10th after, of course, getting a penalty for that contact with Stevens and having to make an unscheduled stop. But, not the best race for Grosjean, but still, it's a point. Sadly, no points for Perez, Sainz, Ricciardo, Marcus Ericsson. A pretty good race from him, finishing 14th ahead of his teammate and Max Verstappen and Will Stevens. Bit of a shame for Felipe Nasr, his worst result this season, probably his worst race, I think, probably since Malaysia. Down in P16, he was running with a lack of power for a lot of the race, really struggling in that cell, but it hasn't been the best weekend for them. Of course, not getting the Ferrari upgraded engine, and it's rumoured they're not going to be getting it until Spa, so I think it's going to be a tough, remainder of the season for Sauber. They should be strong at certain tracks, like we saw at Monaco, maybe a higher, races of high attrition. Sauber should be there or thereabouts. We know Ericsson and Nasr can race, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing them, having a few better races than this, because this race was pretty dismal for the Sauber team, as it was for the Toro Rosso team as well, 12th and 15th. Not a good race for Toro Rosso, but I guess exactly what they expected. And that pretty much rounds out then the review of each driver's race. We got Merri, Button and Alonso as well, all retiring from the race. How does it affect the driver's standings? Well, not really that much. Everyone basically just staying exactly where they are. Hamilton leads Rosberg, Vettel, Raikkonen, Bottas, Massa, Ricciardo, Fiat, Grosjean and Felipe Nasr still in 10th place. Brilliant job from him. As for the constructors, Lotus are the biggest movers, up from 7th to 5th. They should probably be setting after Red Bull, I'd think, after a strong showing here in Canada. I definitely expect them to be very strong over the next few races. Overall, then, who was the driver of the day? It's pretty tough, I could have given it to, I think, a lot of drivers. Sebastian Vettel doing a brilliant job, Felipe Massa doing a brilliant job, Danny Fiat, Pastor Maldonado. Could be any other one of those. I think I'll give it to Sebastian Vettel for this race. Some really good aggressive and really good battling, and I think overall the race was pretty good. Not as bad as I think some people are saying. Some people do only care about the who wins the race and the battle for the lead, which in F1 is probably not the right the mental kind of attitude towards it, because you're never really going to get a battle for the lead this season. Probably you might get a couple, but you really just need to focus on the midfield and the back, because there is a really good fights going on up and down. And hopefully we'll see some Ferrari and Williams battling as well over the next few races in that battle for second place. But I do think Mercedes are going to be, still the strongest team. As for the midfield, we should be seeing Force India's B-Spec car in Silverstone. Watch out for that. Red Bull and Toro Rosso should be stronger. After Austria, Austria is not going to be the best track for them. Watch out for them at Hungary. Toro Rosso have a really good chassis and could be very, very strong there. Madame Russia should be better after Belgium. Can't wait for them to get that upgrade. They could even catch Sauber. That's something to watch out for towards the end of the season. That's got to be their target. And, as for Lotus as well, they could, the Lotus is a bit of an unknown, could they get in amongst, Williams and Ferrari will have to see, could Force India as well once they get their B-Spec car. What a McLaren Honda. Who knows? It's been a very, very poor race for McLaren, but it's been a brilliant race for Mercedes. Another 1-2. Hamilton comfortably leading the standings after 7 rounds. Now we head to Austria. I'll see you guys then for my preview and review. Goodbye.